Hey everybody, this is Matt Golden from GamersCast, and this is the Catchup Corner. It's a nice new segment I made where basically we want to have a casual discussion regarding games that I'm playing off screen. Like I said, it's a discussion, so if you have any thoughts on the game whatsoever, any thoughts based on what I've said in this discussion, please leave a comment down below. I'll join the discussion every now and again, but really the whole point of this is to get a lot of people commenting, a lot of discussion going about the game. Today's game that we're talking about is Persona 4 Golden for the PlayStation Vita. I'm going to be honest with you guys, there is one reason only why I picked up this game. You see, this past holiday season, I found a PS Vita on sale for only $130. And because I've had PS Plus for so long, I also had a lot of games to go with it already, so I figured, what the hell. I bought the Vita, and then I looked on Metacritic, and there was only one game that had an aggregate score of higher than a 9 out of 10. Only one on the entire system, and that game was Persona 4 Golden. A little background on the game, this is the remake of the original game which came out on the PS2 back in 2008. It's part of the Shin Megami Tensei series, and it's the 4th edition to the Persona series of the Shin Megami Tensei series. Don't worry about it. If you've never played a Shin Megami Tensei game, or you've never played a Persona game, it doesn't matter. Completely original story, completely original plot, or at least I'm pretty sure, because this is the first Persona or Shin Megami Tensei game that I've ever played. So, if you don't know, it's basically a turn-based JRPG. It's very long. And I say that begrudgingly. I say that with a lot of caution. Word of warning, this game is long. If you do not have time for a time suck, do not play this game. And when I say long, I mean this game can take anywhere from 80 to 100 plus hours. It is long. Now, like I said, it's a turn-based JRPG. Very long, very story-centric. And when I say very story-centric, I mean by the time I was 4 or 5 hours in, I've only had 2 to 3 real battles, because the story was still setting up. The game finally opens up after that 5-hour mark and lets you do what you want. And once it opens up, that's when the game really begins to shine. So if you picked up this game and you only played like an hour or two, get through the first 5 hours. Then that's when the meat and the golden bits of this game start to flourish. So, game starts off, and you have a plot now. I'm gonna try to stay away from the plot as much as physically possible while talking about this game, but this should be a spoiler-free discussion, so don't worry about it. Now, like I said, if you're mainly only in it for the plot, and you're not really a JRPG guy, they actually did make an anime based on this game. So if you really dig the plot but not so much the game, watch the show. If you're really digging the game, do not watch the show. Otherwise, you will just have the game spoiled for you very, very, very quickly. So basically, the game is divided into 2 major halves. There's the social half, and then there's the dungeon crawling half. That's what progresses the story mainly. So basically, what happens is people in town are being kidnapped. It's your job to go into this alternate world within a television to save these people. So, you go in, and on the surface, it looks like your standard turn-based JRPG, but it's actually a lot deeper than that, because, how should I explain this? The best way to describe this game, it's basically kinda like, what's Ni no Kuni, kinda. You have familiars, you have creatures, and basically you have to level up these creatures and get them to basically fight these monsters. It's turn-based. Really great game. But the thing is, you have to crawl through these dungeons and level grind to save someone, but you only have a certain period of time to do it. And that's what makes this game really unique, because basically it runs on a clock. The best comparison I can make offhand is Majora's Mask, except you're constantly being timed. for how you spend your days, how you plan out your week, how everything in your social life and the dungeon crawling life goes in order to progress. Because if you're not managing your social life correctly, then you're also not going to be strong enough to progress in the story. You see, your social life in this game actually plays a huge part because you can form social links with people who have certain characteristics. If you have a persona, or rather a creature, who shares these characteristics, then by having a higher social link, it raises that persona's power. So it's not just your typical level grinding fest. You also have to have your own set of emotions, your own set of skills for your main character, such as like understanding, expression, courage, things like that to help you progress through the game. There's a lot going on at once, and while you start to play, it will feel intimidating. I was intimidated the shit out of, but once you start playing, it really breaks down, becomes a lot more fluent. Now, I will say this game is a bit on the grindy side. The higher you set the difficulty, the more grindy it gets. And by that, I mean, I would recommend playing this game at easy to normal difficulty. Do not play on very easy unless you're only in it for the story, in which case just watch the anime. If you want to play on hard or very hard, you would have had to have played this game before. You would have had to have beaten this game before. I would not recommend playing on those difficulties, otherwise it becomes even more of a time sink and becomes very, very grindy. And I will say this, the grinding system is done in a way so that the game basically always has you right where it wants you. If you were overpowered at one point, you'll start getting less EXP in dungeons, whereas if you're underpowered, you'll start getting more. The game basically has you by the nuts and will keep you at a spot where the difficulty will remain relatively constant. So a lot of the time I found when it wanted you to go back in dungeons again and train some more, a lot of the time I personally didn't really feel the need. Keep in mind though, I'm only 22 hours into this game. I'm only a quarter of the way through this. I'm only on my third or fourth dungeon right now. But I will say this, the game itself is great. Once you start playing and once you get to the point I'm at, everything becomes very fluent. You start knowing days in advance what skills you want to grind on in the social life, what social links you want to build up. Then you start getting into persona fusions. That's really the only way to get overpowered in this game, is through fusions. So basically, imagine if in Pokemon you could take a Charizard and shove it inside of a Squirtle and you get some weird mutated thing as a result. That's basically what persona fusions are. You can basically just take two things, fuse them together, and get a more powerful monster as a result. That's really the only way to get overpowered in this game, but it still holds you down because your character, the main character, also levels at the same time. So you cannot have a monster that is a higher level than your own character. Otherwise, you can't use him until you level enough. And I'm pretty sure the game tries to stop you from letting that happen. If you're going through normal level grinding, means that's never going to happen. If you're going through fusions, there's a good chance that could happen. But like I said, you're being limited. And not only your own monsters and your own personas do you have to manage, you also have to manage your 3 other party members. Granted, at this point in the game, they can only have 1 persona each. So it's not that bad, but at the same time, it's a turn-based system. It's sort of, going into battles, the battles encounters aren't random. You see the monsters going in, so you can either go in at an advantage or at a disadvantage, like I made my Ni no Kuni comparison before. But unlike Ni no Kuni, like I said, it's also turn-based. So you can either go in at an advantage or a disadvantage. You can swap personas mid-battle and then attack. It's a very strategic system that becomes very fluent over time. Like I said, it will take a bit of getting used to. There's a definite learning curve here. If you're not a big RPG guy, definitely play this on easy. If you've played your fair share of RPGs and JRPGs, go into this on normal. If you do not go any higher than that, if you haven't played this game before. Otherwise, you will get completely screwed over by the calendar system and the whole timing of everything. The fact of the matter is, they give you a really good amount of time on the clock to save everyone, but the fact of the matter is you also have to manage your days, and you have to plan out like, oh, would this day might end up being a waste if this happens, and then story events fuck with the whole schedule too. You can pick up part-time jobs, you can read books, you can do janitor work, you can go to class, you can study, you can go to the library. It's basically an everyday life kind of thing that you have to manage, while at the same time this other plot is going on in the background. It's a very intricate system, but it's very well put together. I really like it a lot. Now, in Golden, like I said, it's a remake, so they added quite a few new features. Notably, they changed a few things around, so if you've played the original, not everything is identical to as you may have remembered it. It's just to keep things a bit fresh, like questions on tests and stuff, completely different. What else happened? New dungeons added, and there's online features. There's an SOS feature you can push, which you can push that button, and other people online will get an alert saying, hey, this person needs help. If they tap the button, they get no penalty, and then you get like, all their characters get like something like 10 HP and 10 SP to level. And it'll be before each battle, but you don't know if someone actually responded to the request until you go into the battle. It's a really nice system, but honestly, it doesn't really do that much. Every now and again, I saw 2 people respond to one request, and I got twice as much HP and SP. That's very rare to happen, and by very rare, I mean I've been playing the game for 22 hours, and that's only happened to me once. It is, though, a really gripping game. If the story's great. If it wasn't for the story being so good, I would not have put as much time into it. Typically, I get bored of games very, very, very quickly. So, if you look at my achievements on Xbox or on PlayStation or whatever, you'll see most of the games on there have under 50% completion. I usually drop things and move on and grow bored very quickly. 22 hours in, this game is still gripping to me. This game still has a great story to me. Everything still feels fresh and new, and there's new things happening every single time I turn on the game. I will say this. Unlike some RPGs, this one is very heavy on skills and very heavy on special moves. Typically, on the way I play a lot of RPGs is I'll try to attack as much as I can to save my mana, MP, SP, whatever you call it in whatever freaking game you're playing. I'll try to conserve that. In this game, Persona, you have to completely rewire your thinking if you're like me, because in this game, it's the complete and utter opposite. You want to use your skills as often as possible. Honestly, your SP in this game is a lot more valuable than your HP, because you can heal your HP on a whim in this game, but your SP is a lot more hard and a lot more difficult to manage. So, it's a very unique game, very interesting game. Persona 5 comes out next year. It's later this year. Oh my god. Definitely check that out. And those are my thoughts on Persona 4 Golden. If you've never played this game or this series or had anything to do with Shin Megami Tensei, this is a great place to jump into it because, like I said, bit of a learning curve, but at the same time, it progresses at a good, very forgiving pace if you play on easy or normal. There's no shame in playing on easy. Let me say that right now. You'll still have a fair amount of difficulty managing your SP, but you'll also be able to get through dungeons a lot quicker. Like every dungeon I've encountered so far, I've been able to clear in a day. A lot of the times in the higher difficulties, you'll have to clear like 2 or 3 floors. Then you'll say, okay, I have to call this a day, go back to the real world, sleep it off, and then go back in. I haven't had to do that yet. But the game itself, very satisfying. If you're into RPGs at all, I would definitely recommend it, unless you have something against turn-based RPGs, in which case I don't know what's wrong with you. Anyway, it's pretty much the must-have owner for PS Vita owner, must-have game for PS Vita owners, because let's be honest, at this point that thing is just a machine for JRPGs, almost exclusively. If you're not a JRPG fan, you probably don't have a Vita. That's basically, as sad as it is to say, that is how it goes. But I will say, you can get the game for about $20 now. Fantastic value for that. You're getting about 100 hours for $20. That's a great value, in my opinion. Anyway, like I said, leave your discussion comments down below about Persona 4 or Persona 4 Golden or anything that I've talked about in this episode or what you think of the game. I've been Matt Golden from GamersCast. Check out the newly launched GamersCast.com at GamersCast.com. I've been Matt Goldsman. I'll catch you guys next time.